Alrighty, well, we're back. I'm surprised you're back a little bit. I may make you regret that in just a second. On this little side tangent, I'm going to start out on... Yeah, all day today, my right nostril keeps bleeding. Yeah, just the right one. I'm not sure why, but yeah, it's probably partially because it's so flippin' cold outside. But yeah, so since that unnecessary tale is out of the way and you're appropriately disgusted, now's the perfect time to get back into our conversation with Mr. Jackson Grant Collins. He's still the same person, because it's just a continuation of the interview that we recorded from last time. So not a lot of new things to introduce, but going into this, just so you know, we're going to be having a long discussion about truth and honesty, and then a discussion about Pixar movies and our combating opinions on them. So if that interests you, stick around. If not, stick around anyway, because I'm required to get ratings up. Oh, and happy Valentine's Day, I guess. Whatever. So enjoy celebrating your loving romance. So sit back and enjoy the ramblings of two very, very single men. Without any further ado, we return you to Jackson Grant Collins and me.
So, Jack,
Yes.
on a more serious topic, because I'm capable of that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to tackle the honesty
Okay.
from both directions, from the direction of lies and the direction of truth.
Okay.
You had mentioned something recently more about truth. We'll get to that second.
Okay.
First, I have a little thing that I want to talk about. Lying for good intentions. And is that a thing? Is that, and what constitutes that? So what I want to start with is a story. I worked at a golf place over the summer, and we had a thing where there were lucky holes.
Ah.
So a couple went through, didn't hit any of the lucky holes, but the man came in by himself first. She was still waiting outside, and he said, "I'm gonna go ahead and pay for another round, but tell her that we got a lucky hole."
Okay.
And it'll make her so happy to think that she got the lucky hole. And that bugged me so much because I understand the desire to create something special and exciting for her, but also it's based on something that's not true. And not that they would ever find out, but if they found out that was the case, they would wonder what else is legitimate. You know, it could cause those more issues. Or even at the base of it, though, instead he could have done something special out of his own creation. Like he could have created a special experience, telling her, "I love you so much, I want to spend more time with you and do another round." Like that's special too, in a different way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's very interesting that, I mean, obviously I know we talked about this beforehand, but I was literally having a conversation yesterday about lying in a different sense of, we were talking about like telling your kids if Santa's real or not from a young age, which I've had several discussions with a particular person on it.
They haven't signed a release, I guess.
No. I my parents never said Santa was real. They always said it's just a story, you know, other people make it up.
Same.
Yeah, and we've had a discussion on that, and I've always been like, what's the point of lying to your kids about it? Why not just tell them the truth? And especially, my dad is very big on this point of, why are we telling kids that Santa is real and saying that, oh, no, it wasn't real, it was all just a thing.
And expect them to believe anything else we tell them.
Well, especially expecting them to believe that God exists. That's a huge point for my dad, and I've always held that belief too. But what was really interesting is, yesterday I was having a conversation with Cutter and Nathan at school, and Nathan brought up that there's actually been a study done on this very topic of like, is telling your kids about Santa real? And actually what they found was that actually knowing that Santa was real and then having a good, well-intentioned conversation about how he's not real actually helped a child's belief of the unknown kind of a thing. And to me, and I told him this, I was like, that makes no sense.
So the child believing in Santa Claus and then having a real discussion about why Santa Claus was not real helped their belief in the unknown.
Yes.
I see.
Which is, it's really fascinating to me.
It's counterintuitive, it seems.
And that's what I said. And I was like, I'm not trying to discredit anything about this study at all, because I'm sure that it's like, I'm sure what you're saying is true. But that doesn't make any sense. It got me, and I was kind of thinking about it later, and I was just like, the whole idea of just lying to my future kids about that, it doesn't sit right with me. But we kind of put this thing of like, oh, lying is always 100% bad. And some people are also like, oh, lying is bad, except if it's for a good reason. And everything that we kind of view as black and white is also incredibly nuanced. It ends up being very situational. And
what would you think of as a situation where lying is appropriate?
I think in a way, and this is a little bit of a stretch, but in a way, storytelling is in some ways a lie. It's not in a very, very broad kind of conceptual.
I think we need to narrow in our definition of lying then.
Right.
Saying something with the intention of other people believing it is the truth, and it not being the truth.
Okay, I got you. That's fair. I'm still kind of working this out myself because it's like I don't want to lie to people about things, but also, you know, I think of the situation that you talked about of like, oh, in that situation of like, oh, this person is doing something good and doing something trying to make a moment special. I think that there's merit to that. And I understand the concern about like, oh, if they lie to me about this, what else are they lying to me about? But I'm also like, if I personally heard that from somebody with that particular situation, I'd be like, oh, that's funny. Like that was kind of sweet.
But he was also, if you think about it, lying about her accomplishments, telling her she had made an accomplishment that she didn't make, didn't achieve, and telling her for this reason you are rewarded.
To that, I would say it's a game of mini golf. Like, what are the stakes? Now, if it's a situation where, I think of myself as a future vocal teacher, right? If I'm teaching a voice student, right, and I'm telling them like, hey, you're really good, you're doing a lot of really great things, like you have a future in this, and they really don't. That is a definition where it's like, okay, you're lying to them about their skills and abilities. As a voice teacher, somebody who is tasked with the job of, I'm going to evaluate you and your abilities and be like, okay, obviously you want to get better. How do we do that? And part of that is being, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to encourage you, hey, these are really good things that you did. And be honest, like, this is something that you did that was really good. But I'm also going to be honest with them and be like, this is something that, I'm not going to lie to them and say, all of it was good, if they're not actually there.
Okay, and this is kind of leading it from the other direction that you were talking about earlier, about brutal honesty, and as opposed to honesty out of love. And also, in my opinion, I don't see any place for lying. I despise lying. I feel like there are shades of honesty. I think there are levels of honesty. There's honesty that's brutal and is not useful. And then there's all the way on the other end, honesty only revealing very little. And even that can be bad at sometimes. That can be a form of deception. Yeah. But I think in between there exists the spectrum of... It takes more work. It takes more work to be correctly honest than it does to lie or omit. But I think it's work that's worth putting in.
Well, and I think... And I like the definition of, like, there's at one end there's brutal honesty, which is just honest without any tactfulness, right? Because that kind of prompted this conversation where, you know, the guy had been to a show that was really bad,
Instead of right away saying that was bad.
Right. He said what was true. He said he told something positive about her, or like he enjoyed seeing her on stage. Enjoying herself or whatever. Then later they had a discussion about it when it was a more appropriate time to do that. I think that's a big thing with honesty is that timing is very key.
Yeah, tact is important.
Because being able to be honest in the moment with things that are appropriate to be honest about. Just for example, with you the other day, when after White Christmas, like we had a great time, it was great. And, but obviously, like we discussed earlier before this, like there was some things where we were like, oh, we liked the story from the movie better than the way they portrayed it in the show. Yeah. But I was like, this doesn't seem like a right time to bring that up just right away. Like, oh, I loved it, but the story was worse than the movie. It's like, no, this is a fun time. I was excited to see you in a show again, and I was excited to see all that. And so I wanted to highlight that, and then I was like, later we'll have a discussion about this, and I'm sure it'll be fine.
I agreed entirely.
And I figured you would, or at least we could have an honest discussion about it and not be offended or whatever.
The production was fantastic. The script, we felt, had things left to be desired.
Exactly. No, we loved going to White Christmas. It was such a fun time. I think sometimes also we have a tendency to be honest with the wrong people about certain things. So like I think there's been a lot of encouragement of like, hey, talk to people about what you're going through, and don't hide and bottle up what's been going on in your life. And I think that absolutely, don't do that. But I think that also we don't have to tell everybody what's going on in our lives. And especially, and I think of particularly when it involves other people as well. Like if there's a certain person at work, like, oh, this coworker is just so frustrating to me or something like that, or a friend who's done something that, you know, we don't like or whatever, and it's super frustrating to us. And a lot of times, if we're not careful, if we take that to the extreme, it's like we're kind of talking down on this person when A, they don't really have a chance to defend themselves, or B, we've not really talked to them and discussed the issue with them. So why are we talking about it with other people?
And I think that ventures into an area less about honesty and more about kindness and respect.
For sure.
And speaking the truth in love is being respectful of those people. And opinion is not necessarily the same thing as honesty, as fact.
I think that's the thing with anything that's leaning on the more brutal honesty of like, hey, I know you're not going to like this, but you need to hear this kind of a thing. All of that has to be done in love. And we always say that, but you know, I think you have to approach a situation like that with an immense sense of humility of like, we talk about in the Bible, you know, take the plank out of your own eye before you take the speck out of your brother's eye. You have to kind of do an introspective part of yourself of like, okay, if I'm going to address somebody about this issue, am I like just ignoring the same issue in my own life? Is it really fair for me to call them out on this? And sometimes it is, you have the same issue, but you're just upfront about that. It's like, hey, I struggle with the same thing. I know I'm not perfect, but I see it. You know, it has to be approached from that. And I think there's even some situations where it's not our place to be honest with that person.
That's true. The level of relationship has a lot to do with the level of honesty that's appropriate.
Because I can take a lot of more brutal honesty from, you know, really close friends of mine and people that I really respect, and people that are in authority positions over me and things like that. I can take a lot more of that, and I feel it feels more welcome from them because I trust them to have my best interests in mind, or I trust their authority to be like, hey, this is not right. I need you to fix this for this, that, and another. And it's like, okay, like, you know, it may not be fun, but I respect your honesty because you have a job to do and we need to get that job done. That is a situation. And so I have to approach the situation sometimes too of like, you know, if I see an issue, you know, A, is it something that needs to be addressed? B, am I in a position to address it?
That and whether it's wanted and necessary. I had a great experience once where I was hanging out with a group of people all day, and for hours they were having a deep discussion about many different topics, and I just stayed quiet. I don't do that often.
True. Very true.
But I just stayed quiet and I listened because I wanted to hear all that everyone had to say about it so I could understand what each person was trying to get across.
Yeah.
And so it was back and forth, and it was respectful, but it was all back and forth, different people, different topics. And then after several hours, a couple of them turned to me and said, What do you think? They said, you look like you've been thinking about this for a while. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I was able to, because having heard it all, I was able to take points that everyone had said and kind of sum up arguments and put in my own kind of viewpoint on it into a place that almost all of us could agree on.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting thing that I've never really experienced before that time of being able to get a whole group of people kind of agreed on one thing that we've been discussing for hours.
And it's
waiting for your and on the grander scale, building up a reputation of your opinion being valuable is necessary before your honesty has worth in society.
Yeah. And that's I think a big thing of like, if you're going to be honest, you kind of have to know what you're talking about.
That's true.
And sometimes it comes from a point of like, I struggle with the same thing. Like, I know what it's like to be in the position that you're in, and that's why I can be honest with you about it, because I understand.
Yeah, and that's the difference between opinion and fact.
Right. And sometimes that honesty comes from that kind of like just being knowledgeable about the subject, like, hey, I know a lot about this. This is not blah, blah, blah. Or again, just kind of observing and being like, this is what I think from just an honest top-down viewpoint. Here's what I see. Yeah. Based on all of this evidence, based on A, B, and C, here's why I think D, kind of a thing. I think that's the biggest thing with honesty is that you have to kind of earn the right to be honest with people.
Yeah.
And that is you have to
true.
and there's many ways to kind of earn that honesty.
It's kind of like job experience. The best way to get job experience is to get a job, and the best way to get a job is have job experience.
Yeah,
the best way to gain the ability to be honest with someone is to be honest with someone.
Yeah.
Continually.
Yeah. And that comes down to the more like kind of hard truth of being on the more spectrum of frankly or brutally honest and stuff. Mm-hmm. We can still be honest with everybody, but again, it's like what shade of honesty are you going to give? Are you going to give a lighter shade, or are you going to give a darker shade of honesty?
It takes much more forethought to be honest than it does to lie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, if somebody asks for your honest opinion, like your full honest opinion, and they can't handle it, then...
True, but still, I still feel like the honest opinion should be filtered based on your knowledge of what that person can handle.
Yeah, true.
To be respectful.
Yeah, be respectful the best you can.
Yeah.
And if they can't handle it based on your knowledge of how respectful...
They could still handle it wrongly, and then it's not on you.
Oh, yeah.
In as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with all men. That doesn't mean they're going to want to live peaceably with you.
Very true. Very true.
This has been a fantastic conversation.
Heck yeah.
It has. Moving forward, I've got a slightly more lighthearted discussion I want to have.
I'm sure you do.
Oh, I've been excited for this one. For those who don't know, whenever we discuss movies or stories or media, we generally disagree.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yes.
And now I have a list here of Pixar movies. And I want to see how many of these Pixar movies we can generally agree on.
Okay. So agree on what things?
Agree
exactly?
on... Let's see. I think just a mini discussion about each and see if we...
Okay.
Just as a general whole, we agree in our analysis of the movie.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Just try to just a general thing. Okay. We're going to start with Up.
Okay.
Okay. Thoughts?
Up is a very, very good movie. Very emotionally charged. What's interesting about Up is that I feel
he's analyzing it. Okay,
I feel like with Up, we remember it for being this very emotional movie, even though kind of the emotional parts of it are kind of not limited to, but kind of, we remember the opening scene, the opening sequence where they're growing old together, and then she eventually passes away. Then kind of the sentimental scenes at the end where he finds that she's filled in the empty part of the book that he was going to fill, and it was just their life.
Yeah.
It almost feels like the rest of the movie kind of gets lost in that. Not that the rest of the movie is bad at all, because I love the bits with Doug especially. Doug is amazing. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily...
But isn't that life though? Big emotional events. Our whole life isn't necessarily an emotional event.
Right.
But like a big emotional event can shape how the rest of that month feels. The rest of years feel.
Let me put it this way. I feel like we remember Up for a piece of what it actually was. Like we only remember Up because of how it made us cry, and we don't remember the rest of it, which is still...
Remember how it talks about how the emotions affected his daily life, and even throughout his moods being happy and sad, it was all still a through line, a story.
Yeah. Well, and also like we just forget like that the movie is actually like really funny. Like we remember it for this like tearjerker, but it's also like super funny. Like even Russell.
I think that's one of the things that make it a good movie is because it's got such the range of feeling.
Also, Charles Munch is a freakishly dark villain.
Yeah.
And the way they present him, like the way they kind of
not very many Pixar villains die.
Yeah, not very many. Not very many characters in movies die.
That's true. Well, in Pixar movies.
I think if I had a nickel for every character that died in Up, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Now I'm counting, because is it only 2? I know which 2 you're talking about. I'm trying to make sure it's...
I don't think there's anything more. I mean, there's the implied deaths of the explorers that Muntz killed.
No, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's
okay.
2.
Death count of Up is 2.
So, fun fact. As of like 2 years ago, do you know what the largest on-screen death count was in a movie? I don't know the number. Do you know what movie it is, I should say?
Star Wars is probably up there. I feel like A New Hope is probably up there.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which one? Volume 1?
The first one, I believe.
When did people die?
No, it was Volume 2. Volume 2. Several planets were destroyed.
Oh, okay.
I think it was 2. I should have probably looked up my fact before giving it as a fun fact.
I could see that happening. I just know that like Earth didn't get destroyed because of the plants or whatever, the reconvergence or whatever ego was trying to do.
But anyway, isn't that the one that had the superior race, and they were like, no,
they did,
and had Nova Corps in it.
No, that was the first one.
Okay, so I was right.
Yeah, the first one.
The first one. That's what I. Yeah,
They're
was
talking
the first one.
Yeah.
Because like, doesn't that whole planet get destroyed and?
Oh yes, because the Power Stone something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
I remember. Yeah, I'd have to watch. It's been a while since I watched it.
I think it also counted like all the deaths in flashbacks that it showed in the movie, like all the on-screen implied deaths. I don't know.
Okay.
And this was like a couple years ago. I read the article about it, so I should have updated it before I gave you my fun fact. But there you are. Up. I think we can agree.
Okay. I think we're pretty agreed on Up.
So
pretty agreed on Up.
One agreed.
What do you know?
Cars.
Severely underrated movie.
Mm-hmm.
My personal favorite movie, I will acknowledge, is not like the best Pixar movie.
Okay.
I still think it is a phenomenally written story.
Okay.
I think. Okay. So first off, Cars is meant to be a very comedic story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's meant to be kind of a comedy movie.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's a couple of things that I think actually make it a very well written and heartfelt story.
Oh, you're gonna tell me what they are.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh.
Number one, I think just the faithfulness to Route 66 and the culture behind it was very well done, and the story they told of kind of the towns of Route 66 that kind of got abandoned. I think those stories are very like the way they did that was very well done and very faithful. Doc Hudson's character, I think, is very very good.
Mm-hmm.
Lightning McQueen is a phenomenally written character.
Okay.
Like in the first movie, he falls off a little in the second movie. Just in the first movie alone. In the first movie alone, looking at that in a vacuum, Lightning McQueen is a phenomenally well-written character.
Okay.
Because at the beginning of the movie, he is an absolute jerk.
Okay.
Like a very, very hateable character.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end, like nobody remembers him for that though. They wrote him so well in that first movie that they remember him as this like super nice guy. Because he had like character development throughout this movie, even though he was a jerk for like 75% of it.
That's true.
What's so interesting about it is the dynamic that him and Doc have.
Okay.
In reality, they kind of are the same. In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, Doc. They both are racers, right? They're both racers at heart. That's what they love to do, and they're good at it.
I thought I was gonna say they were both racist for a second.
Oh my gosh, they're both racers. They love what they do. They're good at it and they know it.
Yeah.
They know they're good at it. But Doc has come from a place where that world rejected him. And McQueen comes into this place and he sees the same thing. But then he sees that good can come from it. I still think of the scene after McQueen leaves, the reporters find him or whatever, and he leaves, everyone goes off, and Doc's just kind of looking there, is like, all right, it's done. We're over. Like, it's done. We don't have to deal with this anymore. And then, like, Sally dashes off, or runs off to the cozy corner or whatever, is all angry and stuff. And then everybody's just kind of looking back. And Mater says, I never even got to say goodbye. And just Doc's face just changes there. And I think that's the moment he realizes, like, oh crap. Like this guy actually did have a positive impact.
Okay.
This person from a world that I thought was completely selfish and completely self-absorbed came in and like actually cared about people and helped them, and people actually cared about him. Then everyone else leaves Doc and he's just there alone with his thoughts. And I'm just it's just such a, and also the fact that he doesn't win.
Okay.
Like the fact that McQueen doesn't win the race at the end.
Spoilers.
Well, okay, if they have not seen Cars at this point, they're an idiot.
Oh, shade thrown. Shade.
But the fact that McQueen chooses not to win at the end and chooses to give up the one thing he's been dreaming about his whole life to do the right thing. Like I respect them a lot for doing that. Oh, it's not the normal way you end a kid's movie with the victor, the main character winning in the end. It's like, no, he loses, but he also wins.
Okay, yeah.
I acknowledge that Cars is not by any means the best Pixar movie. There's way more ones that are like.
I won't disagree with any of your points, but I'll just counter with, it's okay. It's okay.
I mean,
watched it.
I definitely have a very nostalgic
That's
color
okay.
viewpoint
That's
on
alright.
it, but I've also
Once-
thought a lot about like objectively how it is as a story.
Yeah, which of the cars was your favorite color?
What?
Never mind. I'm just trying to ask the important questions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say we don't really agree on that one. I mean, like, I don't disagree with you, but also it's okay.
You don't have as strong as.
I don't have as strong a positive feeling about it as
Okay,
you do.
fair enough.
I think it's okay. I've watched it. I watched it once. That was good.
I will
That's
say,
enough.
next time you watch Cars, like listen to the score.
Who let him break the fourth wall?
It's it's actually very well written, like a very good score.
Okay. is
Randy
it by
Newman.
Michael. Oh, Randy Newman.
Randy Newman did it. It is
Okay.
like, and obviously like Life is a Highway is an iconic track, and like all the different songs. Also Shaboom,
Did he write that?
No, but the songs that he selected.
Okay.
For. No, that's a very old like 40s 50s classic. But
so.
his selection of music for the
Okay.
movie I thought was
Okay,
very
good.
well done.
Toy Story 4.
It does not need to exist except for the fact that Forky's a really funny character.
I love Toy Story 4.
It's fine. I just sit through it and I'm just like, none of this was necessary.
But it is, though, because I love the characters and I want to know more about them.
I
want to follow their story more.
I
found-
don't.
I found it very entertaining.
Okay, I'll give you that. It's entertaining. Like it.
And I just feel like that's what entertainment is supposed to
And
do.
we've had this discussion before. Yes. And I'm not saying that I just watch it and I'm just like, the story is over for me.
Okay. Now, this is not one of our things. It's a bonus question. Toy Story 5 hasn't come out
Oh,
yet.
heck no.
I'm so excited.
You would be.
I can't wait.
Have you seen the concept though?
It's Toy Story 5. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Freaking fighting against iPad kids. What the heck? It's just here's a besides the fact that I don't think it should exist. I will say I think one of my biggest criticisms of the movie, number one, they butchered Buzz's character. Buzz is such an idiot in this movie. Like Buzz goes from this guy.
He's always been kind of a dork.
I mean a little bit, but like
I mean, he started out as a complete idiot because he thought he was an actual
see, here's
toy.
the thing. Like Buzz is a little quirky, but he's still like really smart. Like I think here's the thing. Like the whole joke with the whole B plot of Toy Story 4 is that Buzz is like trying to figure out his whole inner voice thing, just like the button on.
Well, no, I think, and I maybe it doesn't do it perfectly, but I think he's actually trying to figure out if external events are speaking more to what's going on inside than you may expect. A lot of people do that. A lot of people go through, little things that they see, like, the light was green faster. Does that mean I'm going to have a better day? Like, taking little external things and trying to explore what they mean inside. I don't know. I think that's what he was doing. I think he's trying to...
I don't think that's what they were trying to play, though. I think it was trying to be a comedic bit. Which it's like, okay, also the fact that, like, he asks Woody what a conscience is. And the fact that he literally talked about, like, a conscience in, like, Toy Story 2 when he confronted...
Where did he talk about a conscience?
When he talked... I'd have to find the clip
Because I don't
specifically.
think he did.
He talked about...
I think him asking about a conscience plays more into my theory.
Well, he's talking about... I think it was in Toy Story 2 and he's confronting Woody. They're having the argument of Woody wants to stay and go to the museum. And Buzz wants him to come back. And there's an argument... I remember there being a clip where people compared those two. I'd have to look it back up again, but
okay.
I also think that the climax is really dumb. The fact that they hijacked an RV. Usually, here's the thing. I just feel like considering the first 3 movies where the toys are like super careful about not being seen, all of that was like really stupid, risky.
But it was for love. I understand that point.
Yeah, that was the one thing. I'm in the theater and I'm like,
but Gabby was just, I really liked Gabby as a villain.
Yeah. Okay. Slight side point that I'm not gonna get too deep into. Pixar's really good at doing. There's a specific term, but basically villains that aren't actually villainous in nature, but they just serve as a roadblock for the character. The example they gave was Dean Hartscrabble, or the one that I saw was Dean Hartscrabble, because she's like not doing anything villainous. Like, she's just doing her job. And, yeah, maybe she's a little bit short-sighted on, like, Mike's abilities.
She's definitely not the villain, though.
Yeah, she's not a villain. She's just kind of she's just kind of a roadblock.
Yes,
you know,
but
for
I
the
think
character.
Gabby's more of a villain.
More
because
so.
she thinks she's entitled to part of Woody.
Yeah.
And I think that's more villainous. Here, those three, I pretty much knew what our responses would be. This one, I don't think I've ever asked you about. Brave.
Brave. Okay, I'm gonna be real. Nothing about Brave really stood out to me, I guess.
What do you know? We kind of do agree.
Really?
I thought it was kind of, like.
Well, I feel like that's most
it
people's
wasn't-
opinion on it.
It was. I love the accent.
Yes.
After watching that movie, I spoke in that accent for days.
Yeah.
But
I
in
think
general, it wasn't an impactful story to me.
I will say, and I know that this movie had a lot of trouble in production, but I think that there was a lot of interesting concepts. I think the lore behind like the four brothers who are like kings, and then the one is it Mordu? Mordu? Okay, that's what I thought. And so Mordu becomes like this bear or whatever. I think the lore and the story behind that was probably more interesting than the actual story that they told.
Kind of like the Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
I've not seen that.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know anything about it when I watched the movie.
Oh boy.
But I watched it and I was like, surely that's not what people think is a good story. Because I didn't like it. I was like, that's just so juvenile and so boring. And then I watched like a 3-hour long video that night about all the lore behind it. And I was like, that's fascinating. I could write a much better movie.
That's the whole thing with the games, is that, at least with like kind of the early games, I don't know how much the later games have gone into it, but like the lore behind the games is probably more interesting than the games themselves.
But the story, though, like if I was going to make a movie based on the story, I would have been able to write such a great movie because there's so much good source material. But then they wrote whatever that was. I think they tried to make it a children's movie, but the story cannot be a children's story.
It's kind of a faithful. It's kind of a faithful adaptation of the original game, because again, the game themselves doesn't delve into the story of the lore.
They do in like side quests and stuff.
Well,
like,
the side
quests.
quests.
You find it out and you put it all together. Anyway, it takes. But
it's not the main. It's not the main meat of the game. It's kind of like an offshoot, like you said.
But it's the only good part, in my opinion.
And I think that's what keeps people coming back.
Okay.
Is the main thing.
All right.
But yeah, Brave. Yeah, Brave. It's okay. I didn't think it was bad, but it's just
Lightyear.
You do not understand how much I wanted a Buzz Lightyear movie. I was like, this is a movie that Pixar should make, because Lightyear is like, obviously I watched the old like Buzz Lightyear of Star Command.
Okay.
Like I think I only saw like the movie of like the first episode or whatever, but like I love that. And it's like there is this world of this world of like Buzz Lightyear lore that you could get into, and you could make it, this kind of Star Wars parody, but also, put your own spin on it, because that's what Buzz Lightyear is. Is a Star Wars sci-fi parody.
Yeah.
And could go into like the whole lore of like, Wyatt Zurg's Buzz's father, like what was the backstory there? There's so much that you could do there, and they just missed it.
I had no real problem with the story. I thought the story was good. I thought it was. Wait. I'll get
Okay,
there.
let me hear your whole
It's not
point
without
here.
catch.
Okay,
I thought, wow, this is good. I like how they're exploring this concept. I really liked it. And then Zurg was not his father.
Yeah, that's the big. That's.
If they had changed that one thing from then to the end of the movie,
I think it
could have been fantastic.
I think that's the biggest.
But that ruined it.
I think that's the biggest downfall of the movie, is the fact that they literally like retconned like probably the only thing that is known about Buzz and Zurg's relationship is that Zurg. They're mortal enemies, and that they're father and son. Yes. I didn't like the just direction of the story that they took initially. I didn't like how it was kind of a time travel movie. Not that I'm against time travel movies, but I didn't like that that's this approach that they took. I wanted it to be a story about how, and again, this is coming from my knowledge of like Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, where it's like the Space Rangers are this very like, kind of the Green Lanterns of the galaxy.
I will say, to your point, when it says the title card at the beginning, this is the movie that Andy watched in what, 1998?
1995.
1995? No, it wasn't.
No.
They could never have made... That wasn't the type of movie they made, and they could never have made it that way. Like, to animation taken out. Like, all the other things, like, it couldn't have looked like that.
Right.
The sets wouldn't have looked like that. Like, Star Wars was the type of movie being made a little, like...
15, 20 years
15, 20 years before that, but we hadn't progressed as far as we have now.
Yeah.
Until you can make whatever you want. Like, the style of story that they would have made probably wouldn't have been a time travel movie.
Yeah.
So to your point, if they had tried to make it more nostalgic, more like a movie that Andy could have watched as a child.
And I think that it was like, it kind of felt like in the movie, and this was just kind of what I would have preferred to see, it felt less of like, it didn't really feel like a Buzz Lightyear origin story. It felt like we already saw Buzz Lightyear, not at his peak, but like he was already kind of established. Because he's got kind of the rookie team with him, and so he's like the leader. And it's like, I wanted to see...
It wasn't an origin.
Right, I wanted to see him kind of start at a place where he's not the Buzz Lightyear we know, and he becomes the Buzz Lightyear we know through heroics and stuff. Yeah, it was just disappointing. I walked into it with...
I enjoyed it as a movie, but as what it was supposed to be, I think it fell short.
I agree.
Okay, so I think we do agree on that one.
Also, when they revealed that Zurg was Buzz's like time travel clone or whatever. Spoilers. And the first thing he says when you open it up, and you're like, wait, is that his dad? And he says father, and you're like, it's his dad, and he's like, nope, and it's like, what do you mean?
What did Andy just misunderstand?
Well, apparently the Zurg toy was programmed wrong.
The Zurg toy didn't. I don't know. Okay, I think we agree on that one. So since I want to make this more interesting, I know how one of them will be answered, so we'll do that one first, and then we'll go for a tiebreaker on the one that I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so Cars 2.
Incredibly funny movie. Adds nothing to the Cars trilogy as a whole, which knocks it down in my book.
Okay.
It's super fun to watch. It's one I love to go back and watch.
Maybe we won't disagree as much as I thought.
Here's the thing. I understand why people...
I love it. It's my favorite of the three.
I understand why people don't like it or kind of hate on it a little bit because it's very outlandish. It doesn't fit into this overall, like...
Or does it?
It's... Here's my theory on Cars 2.
I just rebutted all of
Here's my
points.
theory. Here's my theory on Cars 2.
Okay.
In the Cars universe, Cars 2 is actually just a Hollywood movie in the Cars universe. Like,
I don't like that at all.
So Finn McMissile was actually in a deleted scene from Cars 1, and he is a character in a movie that Sally and McQueen are watching at the drive-in.
I mean, I understand how that could create a theory, but I don't think it fleshes out. I think it does. Because once Cars 3 happens, Mater wasn't actually a movie star. So
true, but my theory is that it was a movie that flopped. But it's a movie that was made it and it flopped at the box office, and so
But still, there would have been some mention when Lightning McQueen's career is floundering of the movie that he made.
Maybe. I think Pixar was just trying to forget about Cars 2 because of how much hate it got.
Cars 2 was great.
It's a very funny...
Very entertaining. I'm going to say we don't really agree on it. I think... Because we have different reasons for why we would enjoy it.
I just think it's a very funny movie, and it's entertaining. And I enjoy it for that, but I acknowledge that it's not a great movie.
Okay.
For the fact that it's not a super well-written story. There's nothing super deep happening, which sometimes it's fine, but it doesn't...
I don't think it needed it. I don't think it really needed something deep happening. I think personally... If you look at Cars 1, from the perspective of Mater, it would look a lot more like Cars 2.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think what it was doing was taking us from Lightning McQueen's perspective, putting us more into Mater's perspective.
Which is, I don't think they should have done that. I think Cars 2...
Mater's just amazing, though.
He is, which is why he's get Mater's Tall Tales. That's the thing. Cars 2 is just an expanded Mater's Tall Tales.
Except it actually happened.
Well, according to Mater, everything happened.
You was there too.
But if the second movie had focused on McQueen and taken the more grounded approach that the first and third one did, I just think it'd be better.
Okay.
Again, I still love it and I enjoy it. I go back to watching it. I enjoy the movie, but I think that it could have been better.
It doesn't end our friendship, but we do kind of disagree.
Oh, yes.
So I'm writing it down as a no. So now, out of the ones that I had selected, we are now 3 for 3, 3 and 3. We're tied. Mm-hmm. And so this one, I don't actually know how this one's going to go. It's a tiebreaker.
Okay.
The Good Dinosaur.
Okay. I have never seen a concept for a movie so poorly and utterly handled to the point where you forget the concept of the movie in the first place. Because in the marketing and the opening of this movie, the whole question was, what would happen if the asteroid missed. And you continue to watch that, and you watch the movie, and that almost... If you had taken that part out...
I think I entirely forgot that was...
If you took it out, it literally doesn't change the story. It's just still a movie about dinosaurs. And you could say, oh, but there's humans involved. It's like...
I mean, yeah, the time's together, but like we live so far removed from that time that it doesn't really
Right.
matter to us.
And if it's a fictional story and it's like, oh...
They could do more with it.
It's like...
Yeah.
It's just like... The fact that you presented me with this idea of like... If you're at a pitch meeting and you're showing me like... Hey, what if the asteroid missed?
100%, yeah.
What? Okay. Maybe take it a step further and it's like, oh, what if it's like almost like a Zootopia situation where you live in a world where dinosaurs and humans like coexist in a modern world? That would be much more interesting to me.
True, but then you're hinging on Jurassic Park.
Well, I'm thinking...
I know it's different in premise, but I
Right.
mean, like, dinosaurs and humans together, maybe
I'm
wouldn't
thinking
have-
more of like...
At least to the studio, maybe wouldn't have been as interesting to say, let's make this movie.
Well, I'm thinking more of like, oh, like dinosaurs act like humans and humans interact with them
Oh.
like humans.
Like dinosaurs learn to talk?
Yeah. I don't know. Just that's a just thrown out concept. But like, that's the thing about the good like it's like already right off the bat, you've hit me with this concept that you don't really actually take anywhere.
I'll say this, don't be offended. I don't like your concept, but I agree that there are better concepts than what they did.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think we agree on that one.
Yes.
I think we do.
And the rest of the story isn't good enough to make up for the fact. It's kind of in the same category as Brave, where it's like it's...
Well, I think it's much less interesting than Brave. Brave is
Yes.
at least entertaining and like I want to watch more. But Good Dinosaur, I
think
it at all.
I personally would put The Good Dinosaur as... Well, actually, I've not seen Turning Red.
We don't need to discuss Turning Red.
I think I would personally put The Good... Maybe Lightyear goes below it, but I would put The Good Dinosaur probably as the worst Pixar film.
I would definitely put it below Lightyear.
Yeah.
Actually, so it turns out, although it's down to the wire, we do agree on more of the Pixar movies that I selected than we don't.
Wow.
So I guess we can still be friends.
Was that the stakes that
You
were being
signed
presented?
something. I'm just kidding. It doesn't say anything
Oh.
about us being
I was
friends.
like-
I just think it's funny to make you
I was
panic
like, I
a little bit.
thought I read the fine
You
print
did. You
fairly
read it,
well.
and it's not very fine. It
Isn't
It's just
probably
like
like
two sizes smaller than the
Yeah.
regular print. So
yeah.
no, I just like making you panic.
You would.
I do. So that's all I had prepared.
Oh. Heck yeah.
So thank you for joining me, Jack.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
In my wonderful studio.
Oh yes.
Hopefully we'll fix some sound issues and stuff that we've had so far.
Yes.
And hopefully in the future I will be able to have 2 microphones.
That would be helpful.
But yes, we worked with what we had, and hopefully it was as entertaining to watch or listen as it was to record.
Gotta cover all your bases here.
Mm-hmm. I gotta be accurate.
You would.
Well, thank you, Jack.
You're welcome, Elijah.
All right, this has been a really, really long interview, so I'm gonna make my outro just as quick as possible to get you guys on your way. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. I couldn't let you go that fast. But yeah, thank you so much to Jack. That was certainly an interview that we had and recorded, and I edited and posted on the podcast. Please give me your feedback and I'll be certain to relay it to him. If it's mean, I'll be very entertained by that. If it's nice, he'll be very entertained and he'll probably appreciate that. Anyway, I'm off in 2 days from the release date, not recording. So 2 days from that release date, I'll be opening in a musical where I play an Italian dancer and a parent and an old child. So just have the greatest of days. The greatest. Bye.